Matt Smith here with Family First Life Northwest, and we're going to cover in this video the complete in-home process. We'll cover types of buyers. We'll talk about the 5 things you need to get every single sale in the house. And it's an honor to have John Gavin, Brad Allen, Jessica Powers, and Tiffany Grunberg here with us today. All of them are either running multi-million-dollar agencies or have done over $1 million worth of production in their lifetime for career sales. Brad is the second person in the history of Family First Life to do $1 million on his own pen. So we got a lot of good information that we want to share with all of you in this quick video. So one of the things that I think you need to understand when you're starting to meet with any sort of clients is you need to understand you're going to meet 4 types of buyers. So the first one you're going to meet is someone that's going to be very practical, where they're going to do a lot of shopping. Generally, these are millennials that you'll meet. You'll see people that they're a little more price sensitive. And the key component that we always want in these types of sales is we want a lot of peer pressure and say, you know, everybody with your specific scenario does this. You know, everybody that buys their first house buys this type of coverage. I think it will eliminate a lot of the shopping. The other thing as far as eliminating a lot of the shopping and those practical buyers is making sure that you tell them, you know, I'm a broker, not a captive agent. I've got 27 different A-rated insurance companies that I represent. You can't mark up insurance. It's all regulated by the state. So we're going to be able to find the best price and program for your specific scenario. So you have a practical buyer. The next one, you have people of action. So people of action, a lot of times newer agents have a difficult time with people of action. You just don't build rapport with people of action. You still set the table, which we'll talk about here next, but you don't build rapport and you just get right to the point with people of action. The next one is you're going to meet people that are social. These are the ones that are most dangerous simply because you could spend an hour and a half in the house and not get anywhere and become their friend and never get the sale. So people that are social, you know, it's difficult because you want to have control in the house. Having control is how you're going to capture sales every single time. The last type of buyer is people that are emotional. Easiest type of buyer to sell as long as you keep them on track. 95% of decision making is based off emotion, but if you channel it in the right way, you'll capture every single one. So, John, with your experience, you know, mindset, things like that, when you're going into the appointment, what kind of advice can you give everybody?
I think the one thing, it doesn't matter what kind of buyer you're meeting with, I think the most important thing that everything starts from the time that you pull up, okay? You have to have an air of confidence when you pull up and understand the fact that regardless of who you're meeting with, you're going to be the only licensed agent in the room. And that doesn't even matter if it's your first appointment or your 1000th appointment. If you're not the only licensed agent in the room, it's a little weird. Because why did they write their own insurance then, okay? They're terrible at what they did. So knowing that, I know a lot of new agents go out there and they're scared and they're nervous and it's all brand new to them and they're swimming in their own anxiety. But if you understand that you're actually there to help them out, we have a system that's put in place that we only reach out to people who have inquired about life insurance in some format or another, whether it's through the internet, whether it's through, you know, social media of some sort. These people have initiated the contact. So you should have that confidence coming in there because you're there to help them with a problem that they've already identified. And ask for that help. And so that kind of helps people with the level of confidence they need to go into the house, regardless of what type of buyer they're with. And so you want to have structure as well too. Structure early on really helps you stay on track because you don't want to run into that social person and be there for an hour and a half and 2 hours, you know, and blow your whole day of appointments and be late. And structure is just basically just doing the same thing every time you go out. And so from the time I pulled up, I always pull up and go to the house, knock on the door. They answer the door, you know, say, hey Bob, you know, I'm John here for a 12 o'clock appointment, and do the same things from the time you walk in the door. You have to take ownership of everything you do because it might be their house, their apartment, whatever, but it's your appointment. And so, you know, I always kick my shoes off, introduce myself, and then you have to create that environment that you want to make sure that there are no distractions. If you've got kids, grandkids, or adults watching TV, I always tell them to turn the TV off, please. Direct people over to a table because that's where business is done. They might be more comfortable in the living room and say, oh, we can just sit over here and say, that's okay, I actually need to take a little bit of notes, and so the table would work out a lot better. Even if they've got some stuff on the table, which happens quite often, you got time, so go ahead and clear that off because that's where we're going to sit, okay? If the lighting's not right, ask them to turn the light on. So you have to take ownership of the appointment. So you start with that, and there's that automatic respect for you. And then to set the table and the expectation of what's going to happen, because these people, they inquire online to get life insurance. Somebody calls them up, somebody sets an appointment, somebody comes over. They have no idea what's going to take place. So they might be guarded because they don't want to be sold anything. And so the great way to bring that guard down is I would tell people right in the beginning that this whole process is really simple. I'm going to get about 3 to 5 minutes worth of information from you. Some of it's going to be health related, others going to be financial. And then I'm going to go over a couple different options of what you qualify for and see if we have something that fits your needs and your budget. Does that make sense? They say yes. So now they know that I'm going to ask them some questions. Some of it's going to be health related, others going to be financial. So I don't ever get any pushback when I start asking about the income, about the assets and that sort of thing, because I already told them up front that I was going to ask those questions. And then we go through the finance inventory and some of the things you guys are going to cover. But if you start with that structure and set that table, you'll have less pushback when you start asking those questions.
Absolutely. Brad, can you share with us as far as when you're setting the table, what to do, what that looks like for everyone?
Sure. Yeah. So when I'm sitting with folks in the house, and like John was saying, structure's really important. I do the same thing in every house, really, regardless of the type of appointment it is. I build the rapport. Regardless of where I'm at, I build some rapport. I try to find some common ground, so I run in the neighborhood that I grew up in. And so it's pretty easy to say, oh, I remember when this used to be this or that. So I try to find some touchstone that kind of just lowers the stress, because, it's like, why are you here? What do you want from me? And so I try to just say, nope. I know this place. I'm from here. We swim in the same pool. I'm here to help. I'm responding to your request. And so I think having some empathy and meeting them where they are is really important. I've had people tell me that I have a calming effect on them, which that's the intent, right? Is I'm here to help. And I've said these words: I have a bifurcated fiduciary responsibility. I can't say something the carriers can't follow through on, and I can't put you in a place that doesn't leave you better off. If we can't do those two things, this will be a very quick appointment. Let's see what we got. Okay, then we go through the financial inventory, and I try to kind of decipher what type of person I'm sitting in front of. Are they a saver? Do they really care about their family? Are they trying to build up some cash value? Is this really something that they have to do, they want to do? Where's the urgency? And then the financial inventory will tell me really kind of what we're working with from a health and a budget standpoint. But having, I think, that empathy and relating to people and meeting them where they're at, that I'm not here to try to talk you into something. It's kind of risk management. You're managing risk, and so is the carrier. So it's my job to solve a problem from a risk management standpoint, and it should take a couple of minutes. We'll know in a couple of minutes if I'm going to be able to put you in a better place. If I can, fantastic, because as the field underwriter, I have everything I need right here. As soon as we get done with this piece of the program, we'll know highly likely what it is you're going to be able to qualify for. But first things first, let's get some information, and then we go into financial inventory.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important, as John and Brad has said, is setting that structure and that expectation right up front, right? This is what I'm here for, this is what I'm going to do, and making sure to say that. And a lot of times what I like to do is do just kind of a soft close of, does that sound good to you? This is what we're going to do. I've already established that, so that way when it comes the time to ask those personal questions, that there's no pushback, right? So what I'll do, the first thing first, is find out questions as far as who's going to be the financial burden, right? Who are we trying to protect? I know that this is going to be put coverage on place for you, but who are we trying to protect? Who do you not want that financial burden to go to, right? And dig into more questions on them, right? I want to know their names. I don't want to know that it's a daughter. I want to know Her name is Sally. I want to know how old she is. I want to know where she lives. I want to know what it's going to be like for her when you don't come home, right? What does that look like? I'm going to dig into ask questions about, this is where, it's so important. We feel sometimes as a new agent that we get uncomfortable to ask financial questions, but this is what you have the license to be there. You're right. You're there for a reason. So if we get that proper mindset, like John said, about that, I'm asking these questions because I'm trying to better the situation. How can you give a professional recommendation if you don't have all the tools needed, right? So this is where you ask those questions. How much income are you bringing in? How much is your wife bringing in? How much money do you have going out? Are you supporting anybody? What do you have that acts like life insurance that's transferable upon your death? Any 401ks, anything like that? Any significant savings? If somebody gives you pushback, then you didn't set up your intro properly. You didn't set up the proper expectations of why you're there, right? At that point, you can go back and say, as I mentioned to you, I want to make sure that I can give you a professional recommendation, and I would be doing you an injustice if I didn't know everything that was going on. When you get into the health, I want to know not only what they have, but I also want to know what is their family history like, right? It's so important to understand what happened to your mom, what happened to your dad or your uncle, and validate when you find things. Remember, the intro is you're setting it up. The middle with your financial inventory is your fact finding, right? So you can make comments, make statements of, I can see why I'm here. It makes sense why you're so concerned about this. I can understand why this is exactly why I'm here. Setting that stage, empathizing with them, and giving those, the soft closes of, so I can see, is that why you filled this out? Yes. Okay, great. I can see that since your mom passed away and your aunt passed away from cancer, I can see that this would probably be something that's concerning to you. Is that right? Yes. So going through, asking the questions, we've built up the why, right? We've built up the reason as to why you're there. Now that we've asked the health questions, we have the financials. Now we have what we need to help to get to the point of what do we put in place? What is going to do? If this is a mortgage, we figured out the equity, right? And I go through, I want to backtrack for a second. So if we're on a mortgage protection, I want to find out what their payment is. I want to find out if they're making extra payments on their mortgage. I want to find out what their plan is. If they're with a spouse, I want to find out what the husband's plan is and what the wife's plan is. Is the wife going to sell the house? Is the husband going to stay in it? What does that look like, right? And then I want to find out equity, right? If they've got $1,000 mortgage and they've got $300,000 of equity, I circle the equity really big, and I say, this is exactly why I'm here, right? We've got $300,000 of equity. We want to make sure that when something happens to Bob, that Mary has access to that equity. Equity is like a bag of money in the basement, and we want to make sure that all this time, the 20 years that you've been here in this house, or the 10 years you've been here in the house, that you're going to make sure you protect that, right? That's your legacy. And they go, yes, completely. So now you've built up that value, you can go over to the close.
Exactly. And the thing about like everything that all of us are bringing you to is a natural close in this business. So you don't have to beat up your clients. You don't have to, ABC always be closing. You just simply have to do a good job asking good questions. That's what your close is in this business. It's not about, we always say he who asks the most questions wins. And that's a reality. So while you're going through all of this, it's simply like if you're in your first 90 days, the expectation is that you've done all these things. You've introduced yourself. You've given them structure. You're the expert in the house. You've built up the why, and then it's time to ask for the business. This is something I think a ton of agents just never do, is they don't ask for the business. And you really have to do that. I think the best way to do that is simply just saying, okay, guys, now again, I do know why I'm here. It's very clear. We have a huge differentiation in income should one of you pass away, and we want to make sure, again, that equity doesn't go back to the bank, or that you guys are not asking for food stamps or something like that if it's income replacement life insurance. So you can just simply say, here's what we're going to do. Okay? That is the best way to close. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and we're going to send up a request for benefits right now while I'm sitting here. The great news is that we've already discussed your budget. We're not going to put you in something that you call me a month from now and say you can't afford, because we already know, because we've asked such good questions, that this is something you can afford. Our goals, like we said, were to find something that you understood, that you could qualify for and that you could afford. You're not going to go into somebody's home and try to take food off their table. We would all be bad at this if we did. So at the end of your appointment, and if you're new, asking for that business. Now, if you are uncomfortable in your first 90 days with hitting them with requesting $150 a month or at $80 a month or whatever the premium is, you're going to need to reach out to your hiring manager or whomever brought you into Family First Life. Give them a call from the house. They're going to help you with so many things, and that's something I know we talk about the close being very intricate part of the sale, but at Family First Life, we've created an environment where you can reach out, your clients feel confident and comfortable that you have a team of people working with you to make sure you put them in the absolute best position. That's a quick phone call from the house. I have our agents put me on speaker. I introduce myself. The clients are they're just super sweet and very nice. And then you can get more direction, more help from a team of people, so you're not on your own. I know it gets scary in your first 90 days and you're worried that you're going to place the wrong product. The thing about closing a policy is very simple. If someone dies and their family gets a check, that is all you have to know. So we get confused and we convolute it. But John, Brad, Jess, and Matt, we've all talked about very simple things. These are not, no one's asking you to build a rocket ship. We're telling you if someone dies, someone writes a check. It's very simple. Make sure you're asking for the business. Simply say, John and Mary, again, thank you so much for the information you shared with me. I know exactly why I'm here. Here's what we're going to do. We found a premium that you can afford. You understand how this benefits you when you pass. And at the end of the day, the only thing we have to do is make sure that we get a policy number while I'm with you today. That's why simplified life insurance is so much more important than going through underwriting. When everybody else is waiting to get their blood drawn, you can actually leave them with a policy number, and that makes them, and a death benefit, a real dollar amount. And that's the difference. That's why closing a life insurance policy here is just so much easier.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things that really can help new agents as well as veterans agents is understanding that it takes 5 things in every single house and kind of diagnosing your formula and figuring out where you're missing or maybe where you're making it. Because I can walk out of every single home and say, I didn't get the sale because of this, or I did all these 5 things. So I'm going to cover that real quick as well. So the first thing you need to understand is people buy you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basic sales 101, they got to like and trust you. Right, so that's extremely important. Second thing is your company and your carriers that you represent. So you represent Family First Life simply because you're a broker. You didn't want to be a captive agent. You didn't want to be a one-size-fits-all scenario. You want to be able to have 27 different A-rated insurance companies to get them the best pricing and product for their specific scenario. The next one is your solution. One problem I see with a lot of new people is they're not good at identifying the pain points in the house.
Yeah.
And if we don't identify the pain points in the house, we certainly can't find the empathy because we're off on that. So if we don't identify the pain points, we can't provide the right solution. We can't put ourselves in their own shoes, which Jessica and Brad talked about financial inventory, how important that is. And the fourth thing is logical sense. Is purely that financial inventory. It has to make financial sense, so that's why financial inventory is a big scenario for each of you that's got to make financial sense to them. And the last thing is, if you don't bring out the emotion and with storytelling, there will be no urgency, and without urgency, they're going to need to think about it and shop around. Kind of in the final closing thoughts, guys, John, what can you add to in-home sales here?
Just what you just touched on there is we have to do storytelling, and we have to admit that everyone knows we're all going to die. Okay, so if you just show a coverage amount and a payment amount, that's strictly transactional. There's no emotion there, and so it's okay to be bold with people. It's okay to look at a financial inventory like Jessica and Tiffany had mentioned, and cross off an income for the husband, and say, Bob, if you die, this money stops tomorrow. And then look at Mary's income and say, how are you going to support all these bills with this mortgage with just your income? What are you going to do? And just be silent, let them talk. And I think that it's okay to do that because you're doing it in the best interest of the client. And not just be transactional by showing them numbers, because there's no emotion tied to that, by showing them a realistic view, using that financial inventory to paint a picture of what life's going to look like when one of the two of them passes away, but using it in their best interest.
Absolutely. Brad?
I would say be assumptive. When you walk in the house, know that you're going to help that family. It really, for me, it bleeds into everything that I do. When I know that I'm there to solve a problem and I'm going to do my best to get that family covered.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's perfect. You know, I definitely piggyback of what they said. You know, I walk into the home, it's just having that structure and understanding why you're there, right? Setting up the structure in the beginning, because if anything, I think if you do everything, if you do your in-home, this is my tip, if you do your same in-home in every single appointment, then you don't miss a step, right? Just treat every appointment the same, but don't have these blinders on. Be aware of your surroundings, you know, checking out to see who's in charge, who's kind of the decision maker, you know, what's happening in their life, knowing those additional questions to ask, because that's where it is right there. If we have these blinders on, then we're not going to get to those 5 things that you said. We're going to miss it.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think one thing that as new agents might be a little bit more difficult is understanding nonverbal communication when you're in a house. Your clients will be talking to you when their mouth is not moving more than they do when their mouth is moving. And I think it's really important to recognize those things and to call them out, not be scared of calling them out. If you're sitting with a couple, or if you're in a final expense appointment and it's a single person and they cross their hands and they lean away from you, they don't like what you're saying. And it's okay to say, Matt, look, I've been here for about 10 minutes and you were leaning in and we were chatting, and then I said something about you'd have to pay for this and you folded your arms and leaned back. Now you and I both know nothing's free. You got to tell me what happened so we can have a good conversation about it. And being able to read those cues, or when you're sitting with a couple and they're talking about their income and you show them exactly, you cross them out, kill them on paper, and you show them you guys are going to go from an $8,500 income, and because you did not choose survivorship on any of your pensions, your income is going to go down to $2,500. What are you going to do? And then you look, and when the less income owner looks and there's just a real genuine look, you have to talk about that, and just be, I always try to tease people, like I'm the one who gets to bring up the good stuff, like dying, and people think it's funny, but you have to call it out. You have to be bold enough in the house to say, this is the reality for you. It's not going to change unless you do something about it today. That's why, thank goodness you asked me over today. I can help with that.
Yeah, to summarize for all of you guys out there that are doing these sales, get your mind right, set the right expectations so the clients know what to expect, lead through that financial inventory, learn how to storytell and close, and the skies are the limit. So appreciate all of you guys checking in, and look forward to you guys' success. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks.